and then that way you can go ahead and start probably at like 8:01 or
Okay.
8:02.
Okay. Go ahead and do that. I'm going to go get top off my coffee cup. I'll be back in 30 seconds.
Okie dokie.
Okay. Mm,
Yep, I think we can go ahead and get started.
nope. Hang on. All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us bright and early on this Thursday morning, hurricane free morning for us down here in the South, and hurricane free morning for you as well. I hope everybody's doing well and persevering under the pandemic and the election returns and all of the other things that are going on in our world. Wanted to spend some time this morning talking with you a little bit about the Louisiana Bar Foundation, and particularly why the Bar Foundation and your participation in it is good for our profession. So welcome. If you have any questions, please Q&A me. During the presentation, you will be muted. We've got a couple of polls we're going to take that I would ask you to participate in during the session. So the Bar Foundation draws heavily upon regional support and input from things we call community partnership panels. And these are committees formed on a regional basis. And in your area, we refer to it as the Northwest Community Partnership Panel. And you see here its membership. Paul Wood has done an extraordinarily good job of shepherding the Community Partnership Panel. And John Nicholson, who I think many of you know, has served as our board liaison with that panel. Um, these panels identify areas in which we as a Bar Foundation can participate, provide additional funding, sometimes on a one-time only basis, and they serve to help us identify needs within the region that can be served by the Bar Foundation and or its grantees. I'm going to talk with you a little bit more about them later, But as we're going through the program this morning, I would encourage you to think about becoming active with the Bar Foundation, and the Community Partnership Panel is a very good place to start. So with that, let me tell you a little bit about how I got involved with the Bar Foundation, and provide you with some information this morning about the Bar Foundation's work. And hopefully I will inspire you some to want to participate, and then also to help us share the word. I first got involved with the Bar Foundation a number of years ago when my good friend Mike Patterson, who ultimately was the president of the State Bar Association, was on the board of the Bar Foundation and was involved in the grants committee process. And Mike asked if I would join that committee, and ultimately was assigned to review grant applications and to get to know and learn about the legal services corporations in the state. We have 2 now. We had several more. At one point we had 7. And it was really kind of fascinating work. And it was there that I first learned about the Bar Foundation and the good work that it does. One thing led to another. I was asked to serve on the board, and then ultimately privileged to serve as the Bar Foundation president. There are many things that you can do in our profession and in your professional lives, and many demands on your time and your talent. I would commend to you the Bar Foundation as one very worthwhile organization, and hope that at the end of this presentation, when I speak to you about membership, if you're not already a fellow, you will become a fellow, and help us recruit other members of our profession to actively participate in our work. Okay, so with that background, we're at the first poll. Real quick, answer this question. Are you a fellow of the Louisiana Bar Foundation? If you are, you know what that means. If you don't think you are, you probably aren't. So, and keep in mind that we've got a prize. We'll have a drawing for those of you who participate in the 3 short polls that we'll go through during the course of the presentation. Bar Foundation's reason for existence is to provide funding for civil legal aid. We don't provide any services directly, but we are a granting clearinghouse for and funding of organizations that provide access to justice, legal education, law-related education, promote public understanding of the legal system, and provide legal services to those who are in most need of it. And as we go through the program, I hope you'll get an appreciation for how large that need population is. It's a pretty robust mission statement. I would tell you that the board of this organization is laser focused on this mission, and works daily along with an extraordinarily talented staff to make sure that we meet our obligations under this mission. It's all not just about money. And part of what we're doing today is fostering our mission by providing some additional information to you and to others about the work of the foundation. So that's what the foundation does in a nutshell. These are some of the things that we do. And these are some very general categories of services that are rendered and the recipients of those services. And so we do the direct legal services through grants to organizations that qualify and meet our criteria, and over whom we exercise some financial oversight, just to make sure that they're spending the money that is entrusted to us in an appropriate way. And you see that these recipients, these categories of recipients, are those that we really ought to be helping. These are people who generally have no place else to go, who cannot afford legal counsel, who need it, and the services that our grantees provide go to the heart of their ability to maintain safety and security for their families and for themselves. What is civil legal aid? Unlike public defender services that I'm sure you're familiar with that involve constitutional rights, civil legal aid is not a constitutional right in most cases. It is not involving any criminal defense or post-conviction relief remedies for the most part, but it does support through funding and grant support, legal aid to people who, in a civil context, are facing a wide variety of issues, and we'll talk about some of those in just a minute. And then the foundation also fosters access to justice for all people, irrespective of income or standing in the community. One of the things we have learned, painfully so, and reminded about just recently is that in the event of a natural disaster, the need for the services that our grantees provide dramatically increases. And when you look at the listing here of the kinds of legal needs that the grantee clients are seeking, you can see how some of this is tied directly to a consequence of a hurricane or some other natural disaster. Many of you might remember in 2005 during Katrina and Rita, South Louisiana was working to try to restore homes through the Road Home program, and we found painfully that many people could not prove ownership, that the chains of title had been interrupted. And so one of the things our grantees did was took on this challenge of helping them, and it resulted not only in excuse me, the good work that they did, but also in some changes in our laws to make that process easier. More recently, you're all aware of the issues involving COVID-19 and evictions and moratoria on evictions, and how some of those issues are having to be addressed daily. We also know that the more you can find people in small places, tensions tend to rise, and tempers tend to flare, and occasionally domestic violence results. We always see an increase in domestic violence demands or requests for assistance after a natural disaster. Our children are our most vulnerable citizens, and through our Children in Need of Care program that I'm going to talk about again in a little bit, we're able to provide legal services directly to those children, protect their rights. And then finally, landlord-tenant wage issues, other things that place disputes that would place the economic stability of our clients, our grantees' clients, at risk. Those get addressed and are enhanced significantly during and following a natural disaster. And we're still seeing results of that. You might imagine, layer a pandemic on top of 5 different storms touching the state, and you can probably imagine the demand placed on the grantees for legal services in these and other areas right now. The grantees are extraordinary people. The organizations, and I'll talk about in a minute, have missions that are designed to touch those and to help those most in need. I want to share with you a short video. It's a very touching to me and moving story about a success that was achieved by one of our legal aid attorneys who helped a North Shore family with a family or child custody matter. So take a minute and watch this video with me, if you will.
AJ, he's my sister's son. OCS had taken AJ away from her twice, actually. And she has her own mental illnesses and just really wasn't fit to raise him. When he pulled up his shirt, there were marks, bruises, like lashes all over him. I said, I have a 3-bedroom house. I have 3 children. I want to try to get AJ. No criminal background. We can do this. Just as hard as Catherine fought, every excuse in the world. When I tell you, Catherine fought like no other. It was hell. But we did it. She did it. Let me tell you, she did it. Now, when he was in that care, he would fight teachers, suspended everyone. Since I've had him, he's never been suspended, never had a detention. His grades went from all Fs to Bs. loves to be hugged and held, and whatever will get you to smile makes him smile. He's here, you know, and he knows that somebody loves him. So I'm not gonna turn my back on you. You're not going anywhere no more.
I don't know how you can watch that and not have an appreciation for the emotional success that Catherine achieved for Miss Breon, and we thank her for allowing us to share her story with you. You can only imagine where AJ might be right now if Catherine had not persevered and overcome a bunch of hurdles for this family. Just an example of the kind of services, legal services that our grantees provide. I'd like to talk with you a little bit about those grantees and the network of partnerships that the Bar Foundation has forged over the years to deliver the hands-on services to uh, their clients, those who are most in need and would otherwise go unserved. Uh, we have 70 grantees in a variety of categories, and I'll share some of those categories with you in just a little bit. They're located in every parish in the state, and all of this is community driven and community focused. When you see the numbers of eligible, the poverty population of the state eligible for these services, I think you're going to be somewhat astonished. The need is great. There's never enough resources. So for every AJ and Alicia Breon we help, there are probably 3 other clients out there who need help for which there's not sufficient funding. So if you're asking what the reason for the existence of the Bar Foundation is, it is to make sure, to the extent possible, that we can expand the network and the ability to provide those services. And it's not an inconsequential undertaking. Since 1989, $94 million in grants have passed through the Bar Foundation to these worthy recipients. The categories of grants, the categories of our grantees, you see here on this slide. I also wanted you to take a look for a moment, if you would, at the grants that were specific to the Northwest region, not only the recipients, but the amounts. Acadiana Legal Services and Southeast Louisiana Legal Services are the 2 legal services corporations in the state, and they receive the lion's share of our grant money because they provide the most services to the most people. But you see here some organizations about which I'm sure you're familiar, and they do excellent work too. We can't fund all that they want to do, but we fund as much of it as we can within the priorities that the board of directors establishes. The grants categories, all of our grantees generally fit into one of these categories, and within the grants committee, there are subcommittees that address and review applications in each one of the categories. And so these grants committees folks become somewhat of subject matter experts in the work of our grantees. Children's legal services, juvenile courts, that sort of thing, law-related education, some of this what we're doing today, but other kinds of programs in our schools, domestic violence programs I've already mentioned, high demand, never enough money to meet the demand, unfortunately, of these clients. I've commented about the legal services corporations. There are other organizations that provide specialized legal services. Some of this might be immigration, for example. Pro bono, the Shreveport Bar Foundation always receives money to help support the pro bono project in that area. And we customarily fund local community pro bono activities as a way to enhance the ability of the foundation to touch more clients. And we use that money to provide the administrative and structural support for the organization. Bar foundations ordinarily are bar associations that then reach out to volunteer lawyers. And so it's really a force multiplier in providing legal services to your community. Loan repayment assistance program. This is a program that enables us to provide grants to individual lawyers who are trying to repay student loans and who are working in public service, working with our grantees to foster the mission of the foundation and their employers. Child in need of care money. This is a state appropriation that comes to the foundation. At the request of the Supreme Court, we've taken responsibility for the funding of this program statewide through the Legal Services Corporations. And these specially trained, highly dedicated lawyers represent children who are being placed in foster care. So any of you represented children or people with a disability know the challenges of that. And these are truly special lawyers who are required. This is one of the places where I think constitutional underpinnings require us to provide representation, because we're affecting the family relationship. And then we have some special funding categories, some other things that we do to encourage our grantees to foster stability, like building programs and the like. So a lot of categories, a lot of review, a lot of application processes, but all of that is designed to make sure that we take the limited resources that we have and we get them in the right place, and that the use of this money is keeping with our obligation to be a good steward. So a little more about the community partnership panels now, because I mentioned to you that they're regional. We have them scattered around the state through, we call them the Jock Scott Community Partnership Panels, because Jock Scott's responsible for the institution of them. And you see here that in last year, the Community Partnership Panel in Northwest Louisiana and they have some latitude to make these recommendations that are ultimately approved by the Grants Committee and Treasurer and the board. But here, awarded money to the Shreveport Bar Foundation and to Louisiana Appleseed, which is an advocacy group, to help foster their missions as they identified them on a local need basis. Any of our recipients of our Community Partnership Panel grants have to be a nonprofit organization. They provide direct legal services to the poverty population, or they provide law-related education, or they do something that enhances the administration of justice. We typically award or allocate to them about $10,000 a year. In years gone by, when money has been a little more plentiful, we've gone up to $20,000. This year, probably back to $10,000, given the financial situation and some of the interest on lawyers' trust accounts that I'm going to talk about with you in just a second. Okay, second poll. This one's pretty easy. If you answer this poll yes, we'll throw your name in a raffle drawing to win a pair of Apple AirPods. If you don't want to do it, that's okay, but you got to buy a ticket to win. So take a moment, check yes, and then we'll move on with our presentation. Okay, I guess up until now, I've talked to you about structure and grants and how money is used to support the clients of our grantees and those who have a demonstrated need and are qualified to receive civil legal aid. Well, how do we do that, and where does the money come from? Well, there are a number of funding sources for the Bar Foundation, the largest of which is the Interest on Lawyers Trust Accounts program, established by the Supreme Court and codified in Rule 1.15 of the Rules of Professional Conduct. We administer these funds on behalf of the Supreme Court. We monitor rate compliance among the banks who participate in the program. We work very closely with lawyers and their bankers to make sure that they understand the program, their obligations under this program, and so that there's the proper funding stream from this program flows to the Bar Foundation. And we then in turn use this money to help support financially the grantees that meet the criteria that we've established. This is an interest rate sensitive in source of revenue. So when interest rates are at zero, like they are now, we don't get zero interest, but the amount of interest we get is remarkably lower than it is when the market fluctuates and the interest rates are higher. So we have to be very sensitive to this particular source and monitor it carefully. And then, as you might expect, any good business would, we adjust our abilities to award grants to our grantees. So the economy in this particular instance is going to affect for next year the amount of money available to our grantees. We hate to reduce funding levels for worthwhile organizations, but we can't spend what we don't have. And so big topic for the board every year is how much money are we going to have and how do we allocate it among so many network providers, all of whom are doing good work. Children in Need of Care program, I mentioned that a minute ago, that is a state appropriation. Um, and we work very closely with the Division of Administration to make sure we have adequate funding for that program. We never have enough funding there to make sure that we maintain the right caseload balance, but we have a very good working relationship with Commissioner Darden and his staff, and they understand this need and are fully supportive of it. Cypre money from class action settlements and money that's left over. So if you're in one of those cases and there's going to be some leftover money, you might want to whisper in your judge's ear that the Louisiana Bar Foundation would be a grateful and willing recipient. Pro hoc vice fees. A couple of years ago, the Supreme Court increased the fee that an out-of-state lawyer applying to be admitted pro hoc in a state court proceeding has to pay. We get half of that money, and it's not an insignificant amount. Unidentified and unclaimed funds. These are monies that are found in lawyers' trust accounts over time. Usually because either a lawyer has reached out to us because they can't find a client, or they found a client, but the client won't come get their money and there's no way to disperse that money to them. Or the lawyer sometimes dies or closes his or her practice. And so the Supreme Court has amended the rules to require that after 2 years, funds in a lawyer's trust account that are either unclaimed or unclaimed or unidentified be transmitted to the Bar Foundation. We hold that money. We can use that money in the interim, but we incur an obligation, obviously, to return it to its rightful owner if a claim is made for that. We receive money from a variety of external sources, family foundations, and other sources. And then finally, pleased to let you know that over the last 2 sessions of the Louisiana legislature, the Louisiana Bar Foundation received a general appropriation, money out of the general fund in the amount of $500,000 for each of the last 2 years that we apply to our support generally of civil legal aid around the state. There was a period of about 8 years when the state discontinued that appropriation. We worked really hard because we were the only state in the union that didn't provide some financial support to civil legal aid out of the general appropriation. And we hope over time, as we are able to increase that, that'll offset some of the interest on lawyer trust account deficiencies. I've been talking some about the clients of the Bar Foundation's grantees. Poverty level in Louisiana is extraordinarily high. It'll be interesting to see what it is as reflected in the 2020 census. But we know, for example, if you use qualification for civil legal aid, which is a multiplier, multiplied factor of the federal poverty level, that we have about 1,800,000 people in this state who are eligible or potentially eligible for civil legal aid. And when you compare that to a state population total of a little over 4 million, that's a significant number of our people who live in poverty. And by definition, if they live in poverty, they're eligible probably for one of these programs, provided that there are assets available to provide resources. And of that number, just in your area, about 211,000 are eligible. Sometimes our ability to provide services to these folks is the only thing standing between the family's ability to be self-sufficient and poverty, employment-related issues, school-related issues, those kinds of things, family issues that sometimes make the difference in whether a family can be self-sufficient and com- uh, contributing to society or not. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about, in the next slide, a little bit about how we have now figured out and measured that the investment we make in civil legal aid actually pays a tangible return on that investment. Uh, Look, there's a reason to do this, even if there was no return on investment, right? There's a moral reason and an economic and social reason to do this and to keep people functioning in society and making sure they're self-sustaining. But there is an excuse me, there is an economic advantage to our state by the dollars we spend. And so we commissioned a study not long ago just to tell us whether we were right about that. Tell us, can you calculate the return on this investment? And you see here that our economic impact study revealed that there is a significant benefit, tangible benefit, including reduced reliance on government aid and the judiciary for the dollars that we spend, that we pay to grantees to provide these legal services. And the economic impact is not insignificant. And that is one of the talking points, frankly, that you can use, that we can use when we talk to influencers and deciders about contributing to, becoming a member of, appropriating money to the Bar Foundation to provide these services. Let me put that a different way. This is not a giveaway program. The people that we help, we ought to be helping. It's the right thing to do as a profession. It's also a smart thing to do from an economic perspective. It reduces the drain on state government resources that need to go elsewhere, perhaps, gives the decision makers some additional flexibility. So put aside for just a minute the moral compunction for doing this. There's an economic reason for doing it, and it benefits the entire state when we are able to provide these services and fund these services to those who are in need. Volume of cases and lives touched. This to me is always an interesting statistic when you look at the social return on our investment. The grantees that we deal with, the grantees that we give money to. For example, in 2018, I think that'll be reflected on the next slide. In 2018, they handled nearly 23,000 legal matters. By any measure, that's a lot of legal work. Some of these span long periods of time. You saw when Ms. Breon was talking about AJ, it took Catherine 2 years to get from A to Z. In the next video, I'm going to show you about another success story, maybe not as long, maybe a shorter time committed, but no less important to the recipient. And the variety of matters that our grantees touch, the services that they deliver, is very broad. As you can see, it's almost anything that you would think about when you think about a civil law issue. So in terms of scope of help, the numbers of people we're able to help, and just imagine if we had enough money to fund the other 75% of people who probably need some sort of legal service, but we don't have the resources to deliver them, that number would go up exponentially. So some pretty significant issues for us going forward. I'm pleased to let you know that the Bar Foundation is a leaning forward organization. About 3 years ago, we developed a very robust and challenging strategic plan. When we looked at it this year, it occurred to us that we had achieved many of those objectives, but in light of the pandemic and some other changes, it was time to get together and validate and recalibrate the strategic plan. We have done that as recently as the last board meeting in October, and I'll be distributing some information out to the community about the revised and updated strategic plan and how we plan to achieve the objectives we've set for ourselves. The important thing about this is that the Bar Foundation as I mentioned earlier, is a mission-focused, steward-focused organization, and this planning is crucial to our ability to continue to meet our mission. So it's a well-run organization, if I do say so myself, not as a result of anything that I'm talking about that I've done or not done, but the organization, because of its culture and its mission, is focused on achieving its mission. And the leadership succession plan that we have in place, and the board of directors that we have, and the supporters such as yourself that we have will make sure that all of that happens. Let me give you an example. You all know, if you didn't know, then look at what we're doing today. Technology has kind of invaded our lives every day, more so than ever before. So instead of me being with you in Shreveport, we're Zooming. We're handling legal matters by Zoom. We're communicating with each other regularly by Zoom. Technology is just an important component of the practice of law in our daily lives. Several years ago, the Bar Foundation was presented with an idea about how we could use technology to further expand our ability to provide legal services to the poverty population in the state. Sometimes it's just simply a question of answering a question. Sometimes it is something that the individual can do for himself or herself if given the right information and guidance. So with that thought in mind, and consistent with the Bar Foundation's mission, the Bar Foundation funded the development of the Louisiana Civil Legal Navigator through an organization we call the Lagniappe Law Lab. And that organization is chaired by a former president of the Bar Foundation, Mike Street from Monroe, who has been incredibly dedicated to the success of this project. And so you see the web address here, and I would encourage you to go to that website and see what resource we've just developed, that we've just fielded, that will enable people to get a lot of the information that they need or want for themselves. It is interactive. It maps for you the path to get from A to Z. It answers questions. And where appropriate, it says, stop here, you need to go find a lawyer. Your problem is not something you're likely to be able to fix for yourself. Right now, the Navigator is limited to just a few most in-demand topics: divorce, child custody, landlord-tenant law, and employment law as it deals with wages. We're looking to expand the content here. So if you've got some information, suggestions, if you want to participate as a subject matter expert, if you want to help us take it out for a test drive, all you have to do is reach out to the staff, send us an email, let us know. I can guarantee you there's a need. We will find a place for you to work on this project. Great, great thing. And I think this is going to help us take some of the demand pressure off on an in-person basis with our grantees, so that they can refer people in the interim to the Navigator to see if their questions can get answered. More to come on this. Want to share with you another video. This is a different kind of problem that a Louisiana family was faced with. It was the problem, as you'll see when you listen to Mr. Bunting, was potentially devastating for the family. And one of the lawyers in a grantee organization took this case on and achieved a remarkable result. And you'll see here, I guess one of the reasons we all do this is the gratitude of the client. If you take on a pro bono case, or if you work on one of these cases for one of these clients, you will never have a more grateful or appreciative client in your career. So take a look at this little video here, and it'll give you a little more insight into the work of the foundation.
My family means much to me, but as far as what my home means to me is, you know, it's like it's our base of operations. I just started a job. Unfortunately, I got an infection in my leg. Basically, that was part of my job in retail management, was to stand all day long. And I couldn't do that. I've been paying on my mortgage for about 7.5 years. Always on time, always faithful. So I was trying to get ahead of the game and tell them, you know, I'm going to pay back. I'm trying to be proactive, like they always say in all the credit commercials. They didn't want to talk. The sheriff came to my house with the papers and, you know, served his papers at the house. That's how far it got. And in the last kind of act of desperation, I just Googled in their free legal service. Crystal had the law pulled up on her computer screen there, and we were talking to the mortgage company on the phone, and she's telling them that this wasn't a choice for them whether to do it or not. It was required by law because of how the mortgage is handled through Fannie Mae. And she cited them, you know, the chapter and passage of where it was. And she said, I'll send you a copy of it. I'll email it to you. There was this hand put over the phone on the mortgage company's end, you know, the ruffling of papers and could we have a few more minutes? And, you know, I knew then, you know, I had someone in my corner. After we had filed that second application, it came back approved. The one thing it did for me was to inspire me to do something on my own. I was able to get insurance through a local company here in Thibodaux. Between what Crystal did for me and what the insurance did for me, it almost cut our mortgage payment in half. You know, we can pay our other bills, we can start getting caught up on things now. I don't know where my family would be. I mean, I have a wife and 2 sons. We have no idea where we'd be today if it wasn't for Crystal keeping us in our home. My name is Robert Bunting. I have a wife named Karen, and I have 2 boys that went to high school and going to college here. We've lived in Thibodaux for about 8 years now. We don't want to continue living here. My kids want to continue living here. It's a great town to live in.
Thank you, Mr. Bunting. Another compelling story and great work by Crystal. Kept a family together, kept a family in Thibodaux down the bayou. As you can see, the work that Crystal did even motivated Mr. Bunting to do some things to further help himself and probably reduce the possibility that he's going to need legal services in the future. Great success story, the kind of stuff that we see every day. I'm pleased to let you know that our Community Partnership Panel Chair, Paul Wood, has joined us. And if you have any questions about anything I said, Paul knows a lot more about this than I do. So give him a call or send him an email. And if you want to volunteer, Paul would be more than happy to talk to you. Right, Paul? Okay, so here's where we are. I've told you a lot about the Bar Foundation and the work. The idea of being a participant in this work, I hope, is now attractive to you. And I want to tell you a little bit about how you can formalize your relationship with us. Our membership, we refer to our members as fellows. They include lawyers, judges, law professors. Some of the benefits, in addition to the satisfaction of helping others, is we've got a professional network of lawyers who are our fellows. We participate in networking events. Every year we have a gala at which we recognize an outstanding judge, lawyer, and professor. And we also recognize someone who provides extraordinary service to the justice community in the state. You can be associated with an organization that directly impacts people and directly impacts people who are among those most in need. Let me tell you a little bit about our honorees, and it'll give you an idea of the quality of people that are members of our organization and are recognized by our organization. The board just recently selected Judge Guy Holdridge of the First Circuit Court of Appeal as the distinguished jurist for this year. Our distinguished lawyer is Linda Law Clark, who is a former president of the Baton Rouge Bar Association and a very long time member of the Capital Area Community Partnership Panel. And then our professor of the year is Professor Donald North from the Southern University Law Center. And Donald has been kind of the linchpin in the clinical practice at Southern. And Southern was a leader among our law schools in developing clinical practice and experiential learning. And then for the Caliguero Justice Award, this award named in honor of late Chief Justice Pascal Caliguero, Judge Rusty Knight of the 22nd Judicial District Court for the extraordinary work he's done with the reentry court and the impact that has had on similar efforts in other courts around the state. So it's a great organization. I am so proud to be a part of it. I think what we do is good for the profession. It helps us remember that what lawyers do at our core is to help people. The Bar Foundation is a visible organization dedicated to serving people who are less fortunate, bringing lawyers and their clients and these grantees together to maximize the effort to provide access to justice and quality legal services to our poverty population and those who are the most vulnerable in our system. So I would encourage you to consider becoming a fellow if you're not already one. I would ask you to help us recruit more fellows. And if you have somebody out there who is interested in helping us, but maybe doesn't meet the criteria for fellowship, we have a place for them too. So please feel free to spread the word. Help me spread the word about the great work that the Bar Foundation does. And then finally, our last poll. We actually have a 1 hour version of this. Well, maybe this is the 1 hour version as I look at my clock, but we have a 1 hour version of this program that is qualified for CLE credit. And we would be happy to export that to you if you have a group in mind, or if you are interested in presenting it or some portions of it to one of those groups, just let us know. Here's a quick poll, yes or no. If yes, Danette will follow up with you and get the materials to you. We would love to have you help us spread the word about the Bar Foundation through the use of this program. And with that, I probably have run over a little bit of my allotted time. I do not apologize for that, though. There is so much good news here, and I'm just pleased to have the opportunity to share it with you. Thank you for joining me this morning. Keep the Bar Foundation in mind. Consider participating if you're not already doing that. Give Paul a call and talk with him offline. And I hope to be able to see you all in person at some event, either during the coming few months or certainly at the gala in April. Have a great day.